Hello, my name's Elijah Wells, and today's review is Trey Edward Schultz's new movie, Hurry Up Tomorrow. Abel Tesfaye, also known as The Weeknd, plays a fictionalized version of himself as a mentally vulnerable and psychologically damaged musician who's currently on a tour. But however, after losing his voice in mid-concert, he is pulled into a really weird relationship with Amnema, played by Jennifer Ortega, a mysterious fan that he met in a concert. But as the relationship dwells on and on throughout the movie, the more questions Abel has and more suspicious he becomes of her, and at a point it may cost his own sanity. Trey Edward Schultz's film career at this point has been relatively interesting at this point. Particularly, he's directed what's considered A24's most divisive film in their entire filmography, being It Comes at Night from 2017. Then, shortly after that, he followed it up with the movie Waves, which Abel was very touched by, so much so that he had been in contact with him to direct the movie Hurry Up Tomorrow, which is named after his most recently critically acclaimed album of the same name. Although Weeknd is definitely a massive film buff, which does definitely show how very cinematic his music videos are, particularly in something like Call Me By Your Name, or something like his albums, which do have whose music videos have such a very cinematic and distinctive quality to them, something like the After Hours album, or Dawn FM, and his most recent album, Hurry Up Tomorrow. However, his filmography beyond his own music is, what to say, very interesting to say least. Not just he had a appearance in the widely acclaimed movie Uncut Gems, featuring alongside him being Adam Sandler, but he was also in the 2023 HBO show The Idol, which unfortunately was critically panned by critics and saw it as another huge ego trip for The Weeknd, and questioned the film's politics about the gender rights, particularly in the music industry. But however, since Hurry Up Tomorrow is pretty much written by Abel, produced by Abel, and essentially is based off his album, which again, a movie based off an album is nothing at all new. Like, Pink Floyd did it with The Wall, The Who did it with Tommy, and also Prince did it with Purple Rain, which again, the Prince said the film Purple Rain did serve as a major inspiration for this movie. Despite some admissions, particularly of his series, The Idol, unfortunately, The Weeknd hadn't really shaken off that much criticism he had, to a point. The film has been criticised to a much more heavier extent with pretty much a lot of the film's aspects, and unfortunately, I can understand why a lot of the aspects were criticised. Like, yeah, this movie was essentially a massive star vehicle for The Weeknd. Even though it's less of an album film, like I said, with like The Wall, Tommy, and Purple Rain, it feels like it's a movie about him more specifically. Like, I think that of course all these movies have at least a few songs at least from that album they're meant to represent. For Hurry Up Tomorrow, it's just a title track which is at the end, which when it just comes off as really awkward and feels really stiff on delivery. I feel like I don't want to completely bombard the movie with one-to-many criticism like other critics have done at this movie. Like, for example, like the opening scene is definitely definitely a really strong opener in my opinion. Like, it does give you like a really strong, really good first impression. Like, unfortunately, it never really keeps up the momentum once Amina, or being portrayed by Ortega in this movie, unfortunately came and Jenna Ortega, unfortunately the movie's momentum unfortunately just died out in my opinion. The movie in its opening scene has him in his concert, like in his usual mode, and how he is psychologically, and the movie does interestingly showcase his manager being portrayed by Barry Keoghan, being Lee, his manager. Particularly, we do see him at that scene where he's high on cocaine and pretty much blanks The Weeknd about his psychological concerns, and that he has throat issues that could really derail his concerts. Of course, Lee would ignore him, and it also went on to him completely losing his voice midway through, which is could have been better executed in that scenario, but I don't know what really happened. It just the more Barry was in that movie, the more of a mess it became. To a point when we last saw him, it just straight up looked like something out of Blue Velvet. Like, a more sanitized version of Blue Velvet, in my opinion. The music work, even though it does barely feature much music from his Hurry Up Tomorrow album, the movie's use of synths and use of his songs, although the use of the Weeknd song, particularly near the end of the film when Emilia confronts him in the hotel room, it just feels really bizarre and really poorly put together, in my opinion, where she goes through like Blinding Lights from the After Hours album or Gasoline from the Dawn FM album, and tries to link up that it's all about like toxic relationships and all that. It just feels like a really bizarrely put together scene. Like, okay, who greenlit this, and did anyone raise any qualms about this? But even though the movie's music is pretty much good, besides of that one scene, but even with the Weeknd's music thrown in, particularly when we go to his concerts, particularly at the middle of the film and in the start of the film, where it does show the Weeknd and his mindset and how he preps up for the concert, which is again a really a good mood setter in my opinion. Like, even though in his music video, like, After Hours, like, it really does, he really knows how to really set the mood, like, how it really gets the atmosphere starting going, in my opinion. And even from the score stuff, which is, again, broadly, mostly just synthesizers, which is, again, a really nice, really cool, cool music trait you can put in your film, which, again, I'm maybe a little bit of a sucker for, like Sims or something like that. It does remind me a little bit of something like Tangerine Dream's score from like Thief, which again, really good score on that one. I feel like he tried to emulate it again in that film. One of the better qualities of this movie is surprisingly the movie's cinematography, in my opinion. Something that Abel is proudly admitted to that movie. That film was shot on like 16mm film and 35mm, which is again really shows the color a lot more better as opposed to like say digital film. Again, how cinematography is really good in this movie is just how the colors, particularly in his concert, is so really vibrant and really beautiful to look at. And whether you're looking at The Weeknd or you're looking at the crowd or you're looking at Jenna Ortega's character, the cinematography never failed at one point, even in these concerts at all. Like, even when they're at the pier, the cinematography is absolutely gorgeous in that one. And particularly when Abel's having one of his psychological episodes, either freaking out from an anxiety attack in a nightclub or he's ended up somehow in a hotel basement. The cinematography is absolutely really beautiful, and how the editing is definitely well put together in the anxiety scene. Like, there's definitely a lot of thought being put into the craft area in this movie that it shouldn't really been written off altogether, but unfortunately the same could not have been said at all, particularly in the film's writing, and how Abel may have been a little bit too controlling altogether in that film. Okay, Abel, I think as someone who really likes his music, just please stick to music for this one. Like, the writing is not really great in this movie, as it does feel really stiff and just not really putting his A game into writing a feature film as opposed to writing his music. Like, again, I do really like his music. Blinding Lights is an absolute classic. I really like Save Your Tears from his After Hours album. I really like Hills from like Beauty Behind the Madness. I do like a lot of his stuff, like the lyric stuff in it and production stuff in it, but I feel like I don't feel like he has the chops to write a feature film per se. Like, it just, the dialogue just came off as stilted and really iffy at best, which is just never a good sign for a first time writer. And the film, I feel like, again, since Abel Tesfaye did write the movie, did produce it, and it was based off his album, I feel like he was a little too much of a control, it just came off as somewhat of a control freak. I feel like you do somewhat feel like he had a lot of fingerprints on that movie altogether. Like, I feel like he had Trey Edward Schultz as a director solely. I'm not sure if his case he's told what he must from Abel. I think it's just a case that he just wanted a fanboy about his movie Waves, just on set, and of course Trey, I don't think had that much of a specific vision of him, so they kind of clashed, I guess. That's kind of the impression I got from that movie. And the acting, I swear, at the very moment when Amina and Abel ended up in a different hotel from where Lee was trying to contact him, I feel like the acting department just completely went home at that point, as the acting from that point on, just became really stiff, really wooden, and it just feels like like a really badly done like soap opera, soap drama you see on TV. Like, not too much effort was really that put on to acting, or it was just one take and let's go. Yeah, I feel like the acting, particularly of Abel, and again we have Jennifer Ortega, particularly in the scene where he talks through Blinding Lights and Gasoline, who I swear this is the director saying, okay, you like the music, just do what you want to do, like just be yourself around the music. That scene just comes off as really icky in my opinion. It's like I kidnapped, I don't know, Anthony Gonzalez of MAD3 and I just do a trivia dump of Midnight City and Wait or Outro from his Hurry Up We're Dreaming album. Like, there comes a point where it just feels really bizarre at this point. Like, maybe this is meant to be like some sort of like fever dreamish movie, or movie that's meant to be less realistic and more poetic with the acting, but it just feels really stiff. Like there wasn't much of a clear communication or clear vision where how the acting should have worked. Even the tone of the film was surprisingly completely a hit or miss at some point. First, it was like a psychological thriller, even though the film's Wikipedia page did definitively say the movie is a psychological thriller. Then became a romance movie, then a concert movie, then a horror movie, particularly when he ends up in the basement. Like, I feel like the tone of the film is like super unclear, like what genre it wants to stay on. Like, it felt like it's driving on all the lanes of the genre and it failed to really stick to one. But I feel like it went to psychological thriller because that's what's mostly predominant in that movie, in my opinion. So, if you want to see a movie about a musician who's been pushed well over the edge with psychological abuse from his manager and being stalked by a really creepy fan, so just watch Perfect Blue. Just please do yourself a favour. Despite the really admittedly cool aesthetics designs of the movie, like the film's cinematography and the colour scheming of the movie and the editing and its cinematography and of course its choice of music, I feel like the movie just really ran out of battery, particularly by the point when Abel lost his voice and the movie just lost its vision. Like, the acting was super stiff in my opinion, the writing was dull in my opinion, and also it just feels like a star vehicle for Abel Tesfaye, also known as The Weeknd. It's less of an album film and more of an ego project. Like, I do really like his music, I do really like a lot of his songs, but I feel like there comes a point where, okay, maybe for yourself, Abel, but not for everyone else, please. Like, I feel like a lot of musicians are trying to gravitate towards cinema. Like Ariana Grande did it recently for Wicked, and she got an Oscar nomination for that movie, and of course she was absolutely brilliant in that movie, so that somewhat justifies it. Taylor Swift did her concert movie because it's a concert movie about her Eras concert and pretty much got away with it, and so did Beyonce, who did the same thing as Taylor Swift, but more of a documentary edge. But for Abel Tesfaye or The Weeknd, he tried to do a concert film, which he previously did for like Dawn FM, but he just somehow pivoted towards a really bizarrely made psychological thriller that was, although very stylish, and definitely had some very cool decisions put on film's aesthetics and its opening scene. But I feel like the movie just kind of falls apart of itself from a lack of a clear vision of like what this movie is meant to be, besides of a Weeknd ego stroke. So for Hurry Up Tomorrow, I'm feeling a 4 or a 5 out of 10 on this one. So, what do you think of Hurry Up Tomorrow? Let me know in the comments below, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Letterboxd and Threads, and this is Elijah Wells, and bye.